Count Andrigny, I am acting on behalf of Monsieur Hercule Poirot in this matter. May I speak with you?
I quite understand your position. I will do anything I can to assist you.
May I have your passport, please?
Yes, certainly.
Rudolph Joseph Andrigny, aged 34. A diplomatic passport.
Yes, I am in the Hungarian consular service.
Wife, Elena Maria Andrigny. Age 20?
Yes, we have only been married a year.
Aged 20, thank you. Are you aware of the identity of the deceased, monsieur?
If you want to know his name, surely it is in his passport.
The name on his passport is Rэтchettt. That is not his real name. He is in fact Cassetti, who was responsible for the kidnapping and death of a child in America.
Ah, that certainly should throw light upon the matter.
Have you been to America, Monsieur Lecomte?
Yes, I was in Washington for a year. Extraordinary country.
Did you know the Armstrong family?
The kidnapped victims?
Yes.
Armstrong. It is difficult to recall. So many diplomatic functions. So many hands to shake. I cannot recall. I'm sorry.
Can you tell me how you spent the evening after dinner last night?
We had my wife's compartment made up while we were at dinner. On returning, we sat up in mine playing piquet. At about 11 o'clock, my wife retired for the night. The attendant made up my compartment, and I also went to bed.
I'd like to take your fingerprints.
Whatever you need to do, I will be happy to cooperate.
The sudden stop of the train awakened you?
Naturally. I learned from the attendant of the avalanche, then went in to my wife and comforted her.
When did you return to your own compartment?
Well, I didn't, actually. That is to say, I did not like to leave my wife alone after the shock. We passed the remainder of the night together.
Other than the train stopping, did you notice anything unusual?
No, I don't think so. I dropped off to sleep sometime before 2 a.m. and slept through until this morning.
You didn't hear the commotion in the compartment next to yours? The American lady who occupies it had quite an attack of hysterics and rang repeatedly for the attendant.
When was this?
At approximately 1:15.
No, I'm afraid I didn't notice.
Do you smoke, Monsieur Lecomte?
The occasional cigar only. They are always offered to me, you understand, but I do not much like them.
Au revoir, Monsieur Lecomte. Countess, may I ask you some questions regarding the death of Monsieur Rэтchettt?
I'm not sure what I can do to help, but I'll try.
Have you been to America?
No, mademoiselle. My husband was posted there. Diplomatic duties. But we were not married then.
What is the color of your dressing gown?
Why do you ask me that?
Detectives have to ask all sorts of questions. Forgive me.
It is yellow. Corn-colored chiffon. Are you really a detective, mademoiselle? I was told you worked for the railway.
Well, I'm assisting a detective. That's what I meant.
Is he a Yugoslavian detective?
I think he would tell you he belongs to the world, madame. May I take your fingerprints?
Yes.
When did you fall asleep last night?
Soon after 1 o'clock, I believe.
Did you hear or see anything unusual last evening?
After the train stopped?
Yes.
No, I don't think so.
You didn't hear Mrs. Hubbard ringing her bell and calling out at around 1:15?
No, it would be very unlikely if I did. I'm sorry.
Good day to you, Madame la Comtesse. May I have your passport, please?
Oui, mademoiselle. You will find it in room 1-2 in the Athens-Paris coach.
What can you tell me of your movements after dinner?
I came in here to attend to the bar after everyone went to their rooms. I cleaned the salon car and went to the Athens-Paris coach to rest.
What time was that?
I closed the bar at midnight, so it would be a few minutes after that.
Did you see or hear anything unusual last night?
No, mademoiselle. The Athens-Paris coach was very quiet. And of course, the door leading to the Calais coach is locked. One can pass through only if Pierre Michel or Matteo opens it for him.
What do you know of Klaus, the chef?
An artiste de la cuisine, and just as temperamental as a painter. Vous comprenez? No one is allowed to enter his kitchen.
His menu seems to overemphasize meat dishes.
It is true that. They call him Le Boucher, but not to his face, of course.
The butcher. It suits him. I would like to take your fingerprints.
I see. Very well then.
Klaus seems even more temperamental than usual today.
I fear an approaching catastrophe, mademoiselle.
Worse than avalanches and murder?
Certainement. Special dinner menus, as you no doubt know, are printed in advance of our departure in Istanbul. Here is tonight's menu. As you can see, tonight he is to serve Wiener Schnitzel and Eldafe Salat, native dishes of Austria, in honor of the Count and Countess Andrani.
Veal and potatoes. Why does this not surprise me?
But so many have asked for the salads, almost in defiance of Chef Klaus, and the porters have failed to put aboard enough vinegar and olive oil for the Eldafe Salat. Klaus is in a rage. The embarrassment will be too much for him.
What do you know of Klaus's movements last night?
As usual, he stayed in his precious kitchen, preparing his pastries and sauces for the next day's meals. He passed through the salon car a few minutes before midnight in a rage because one of the steak knives is missing. Passengers will take anything as a souvenir if it is not bolted down. Why, the things that have gone missing on this trip would astound you.
But perhaps they were not all taken as souvenirs. Perhaps some person, in order to do good, borrowed them?
Mademoiselle, forgive me, but I do not understand what you are talking about.
Let it pass. What did Klaus do after he entered the salon car?
Nothing. We went together to the Athens-Paris coach.
Do you know Monsieur Rэтchett was killed with a knife?
I had heard this, oui, but why? Do you think Klaus may have stabbed him?
A chef that temperamental? If someone was to criticize his masterpieces?
Mais non, mademoiselle. C'est très absurd. Klaus would not stab anyone. Not with a knife. He would hack them into little medallions with his cleaver.
Au revoir, monsieur. Monsieur Foscarelli.
Ah, signorina! I have been told you aid the great Hercule Poirot in his investigations. I will help you in any way I can.
May I have your passport, please?
Of course, of course! Here you are!
You are Antonio Foscarelli. I see here you are a naturalized American citizen.
Yes, signorina. It is better for my business. I am, as you can see, a salesman of motor cars. I do big business. I am up to date. I understand salesmanship.
What do you smoke? A pipe, cigarettes, cigars?
Cigarettes only.
I would like to take your fingerprints.
Of course, of course. Anything to help.
Thank you. You travel frequently to and from the United States?
Yes, for the past 10 years or so.
Did you ever come across Monsieur Rэтchett?
Never, but I know the type. Oh, yes. It is very respectable, very well dressed, but underneath it is all wrong. I should say he was a big crook. I give you my opinion for what it is worth.
Your opinion is quite right. Monsieur Rэтchett was Cassetti, the kidnapper.
What did I tell you? I have learned to read the face. It is necessary. Only in America do they teach you the proper way to sell.
Please tell me your movements last night after dinner.
With pleasure. I stay here in the salon car for a while. It is more amusing. I play cards with the American gentleman who sells the typewriter ribbons. We talk shop, afterwards we retire to my compartment and play the cards some more. And talk more shop. That one, though, he is not the salesman Foscarelli is, I can tell you.
Do you remember the Armstrong case?
I do not quite remember, but yes. The name, it was a little girl, was it not? A baby, una bambina.
Yes.
Ah, well, these things, they happen, even in a great country like America.
Have you ever come across any members of the Armstrong family?
It is difficult to say. I see so many people, you understand. I'll give you some figures. Last year alone, I sold...
Please, monsieur, confine yourself to the point.
With a great pleasure.
What time did you go to your compartment?
Oh, it was early. 8:30 or so.
What time did you stop playing cards in your room?
Not yet 10 o'clock. That stuffed shirt of a valet who shares the compartment with me came back from attending his master. A miserable people, the English. Not sympathetic. He sits in the corner, very stiff, reading a book. Mr. Hardman and I, we lose our taste for the cards, and Mr. Hardman, he goes off to his own room. The attendant makes up our bets.
What time did you go to bed?
I lay on my bunk for a while. The Englishman has, I think, the toothache. He gets out a little bottle of stuff that smells very strong. He moans and groans. I drop off around 10:30. Whenever I wake, I hear him groaning.
Do you know if Monsieur Masterman left the room at all during the night?
I do not think so. If the door opened, the light from the corridor, one wakes up automatically thinking it is the customs examination at some frontier.
Did Monsieur Masterman ever speak of his master?
I tell you, he did not speak, even to introduce himself. He was not a sympathetic, a fish.
Good day, monsieur.
Yes, miss?
Monsieur Masterman?
Yes.
My name is Antoinette Marceau. I'm assisting Monsieur Poirot in his inquiries.
Yes, the attendant has explained that to me. The service is quite good, I must say. I prize good service highly, of course. My compliments.
Thank you. I would like to ask you some questions.
Yes, I expect you would. I shall help in any way I can.
You are the valet of Monsieur Rэтchett.
Yes,
May I have your passport, please?
of course. Here you are.
Your full name, age, and address.
Edward Henry Masterman, 51. 21 Friar Street, Clerkenwell.
When did you last see Monsieur Rэтchett?
It must have been about 9:35 or 9:40 last night, miss.
I'd like to take your fingerprints.
That's a rather messy procedure, isn't it? Do you have something I might wipe my hands on afterwards?
Yes, I do.
Napkins? A wet cloth was beyond your capabilities? Well, I suppose they will have to do.
Thank you. Can you tell me what happened when you saw Monsieur Rэтchett?
I went into Mr. Rэтchett as usual, miss, and attended to his wants.
What were your duties exactly?
To fold or hang up his clothes, miss. Put his dental plate in water and see that he had everything he needed.
Was his manner the same as usual?
Well, miss, I think he was upset.
In what way upset?
Over our letter he'd been reading. He asked me if it was I who had put it in his compartment. Of course, I told him I hadn't done any such thing, but he swore at me and found fault with everything I did.
Did your master ever take a sleeping draught?
Always when traveling by train, miss. He said he couldn't sleep otherwise. Even the express affected him, I am sorry to say.
Did he take it last night?
I poured it into a glass and put it on the table for him, though I didn't actually see him drink it.
Was it unusual for him to swear at you?
Oh no, miss. He lost his temper easily. It just depended what had happened to upset him.
Do you know what drug he was in the habit of taking?
I couldn't say I'm sure, miss. There's no name on the bottle, just sleeping draught, and to be taken at bedtime.
When was his usual bedtime, when aboard the train?
Midnight, miss, or later. With the avalanche last night, I fancy he wouldn't fall asleep until closer to 1.
Did you mix his usual dose of the sleeping draught?
A half dose only, miss, at Mr. Rэтchett's request. I can't say the reason.
What happened next?
I asked him if there was anything else he required. He asked me to send for Mr. McQueen. Then I left him.
Was Monsieur Rэтchett an early riser?
It depended, miss, upon his mood. Sometimes he'd get up for breakfast. Sometimes he wouldn't get up till just on lunchtime. I would wait until the attendant came to collect me.
Did you know that your master had enemies?
Yes, miss. I had heard him discussing some disquieting letters with Mr. McQueen.
Did you like your employer, Masterman?
I should hardly like to say that, miss. He was a generous employer.
But you didn't like him.
Shall we put it that I don't care very much for Americans, miss?
Do you know of any bad blood between your master and Monsieur McQueen?
No, no, miss. Mr. McQueen was a very pleasant gentleman. For an American.
How long have you been with Monsieur Rэтchett?
Just over 9 months, miss. Before that, I was with Sir Henry Tomlinson in Grosvenor Square. I was with him for several years before he left for East Africa.
Have you ever been in America?
No, miss.
Do you remember the Armstrong kidnapping case?
Well, yes, I remember reading something about it. A little baby girl, wasn't it? Very shocking affair. But what has that...
Your employer, Monsieur Rэтchett, was the man behind the kidnapping.
I'm at a loss for words, miss. I can hardly believe it.
Are you a pipe smoker?
No, miss. I only smoke cigarettes. Gaspers, miss.
What did you do after leaving your master?
I told Mr. McQueen, miss, that the master wanted him. Then I came along here to my compartment and read. I was in bed by 10:30.
Who do you share this room with?
A big Italian fellow.
Does he speak English?
A kind of English, miss. He's been in America. Chicago, I understand. He was in here playing cards with another American, a Mr. Hardman. The game broke up soon after I entered, and Mr. Hardman left.
Do you and the Italian gentleman talk together much?
No, miss. I prefer to read. At present, I'm quite enjoying Love's Captive by a Mrs. Arabella Richardson. At about 10:30, the Italian fellow wanted to go to bed, so the attendant came in and made the beds up.
Did you go to bed then?
I went to bed, but I didn't sleep, miss. I had a toothache.
I am so sorry. Was your toothache painful?
Most painful, miss. I applied some oil of cloves, which relieved the pain a little, but I still was not able to get to sleep. I turned the light on over my berth and continued to read, to take my mind off of it, as it were.
You did not sleep at all?
I finally dropped off about 4 this morning.
Did the Italian gentleman sleep?
Him? Oh, he snored. I confess I envied Mr. Rэтchett his sleeping draught, miss.
Did your companion leave the compartment at all during the night?
No, miss.
Did you leave the compartment at all?
No, miss.
Did you hear anything during the night?
I don't think so, miss. The train being at a standstill made it all very quiet.
That will be enough.
Regardez, mademoiselle.
I won't find anything else in there.
Et voilà.
I've told you all I know, miss.
I'll put this into my scrapbook so I can take a closer look at it later. A good idea, but I've come up empty. I've already...
Say, this is mighty nice. What can I do for you?
My name is Antoinette Marceau. I'm assisting Monsieur Poirot with his investigation. You know the name, perhaps?
It does seem familiar, only I always thought it was a dressmaker.
Monsieur, for all our sakes, please do not repeat that in front of Monsieur Poirot. Do you promise me?
I think I just about promised you anything. Oh, darn it, there I go, sounding like Mr. Rэтchett. You had enough of him, I expect, at the market in Istanbul. I didn't mean anything by it except, well, except it's the truth. I love your accent. A little bit of British, a little bit of French, a lot of heaven. Darn it, there I go again.
It is not a problem, Monsieur, but we must be serious now, don't you agree?
Serious, yes. Yes, of course.
You are Monsieur Rэтchett's secretary?
Yes, for just over a year now. I met him in Persia. I'd come over from New York to look into an oil concession. I don't suppose you want to hear all about that. Getting oil out of Persia can get pretty difficult these days. Anyway, my friends and I had been let in rather badly over it. Mr. Rэтchett was in the same hotel. He just had a row with his secretary, so he offered me the job. He was collecting antiquities, but not knowing any languages, was having kind of a hard time of it. I was pretty down and out, so I jumped at it.
What can you tell me about Monsieur Rэтchett?
The actual truth is, Miss Marceau, it is Miss, isn't it? Wait, don't have to answer. None of my business. The truth is, I don't know anything about him. He never spoke of himself or his life in America.
May I have your passport, please?
Sure. Here you go.
What is your full name, age, and address?
Hector Willard McQueen. I'm 28. You're about what, 24, 25?
Your address, Monsieur McQueen?
That's right, Hector. Always saying the wrong thing. That's me. I live at 58 Warren Street, New York.
You must have formed some theory about him, Monsieur McQueen.
Well, yes, I did. For one thing, I don't believe Rэтchett was his real name. I think he left America in order to escape from someone or something. I think he was successful until a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, what happened then?
He began to get letters, threatening letters.
I would like to take your fingerprints.
Would you really? Say, that's swell. I mean, of course you can.
Did you see these threatening letters?
Yes, it was part of my job to attend to his correspondence.
Do you still have the letters?
I've still got a couple in my files.
How did Monsieur Rэтchett act when he received the first letter?
It's difficult to say. He passed it off with a laugh in that quiet way of his. But somehow, I felt that there was a good deal going on underneath the quietness.
Did you know that Monsieur Rэтchett had asked Monsieur Poirot to help him?
No, I had no idea.
Did you like your employer?
No, I did not.
Why not?
I can't exactly say. He was usually quite pleasant in his manner. I'll tell you the truth. Antoinette, sorry, Miss Marceau, I disliked and distrusted him. He was, I am sure, a cruel and dangerous man.
Were you on good terms with your employer?
This is where I'm supposed to go all goose-fleshy and shifty-eyed, right? Like some thriller? You got nothing on me! And so on? Yeah, sorry, but Rэтchett and I were on perfectly good terms.
When did you last see Monsieur Rэтchett alive?
Last evening about 10 o'clock, I guess. Masterman fetched me. Mr. Rэтchett wanted me to take down some memoranda for him.
On what subject?
Some pottery he'd bought, and a statue we were bringing back to Paris with us. It's in the baggage car.
Monsieur McQueen, you are correct. Rэтchett was an alias.
I knew it! Who was he?
He was Cassetti, the man behind several notorious kidnapping cases, including the famous affair of little Daisy Armstrong.
That damn skunk! If I'd known that, I'd have cut off my right hand before I'd write another letter for him. May he burn in hell!
I didn't mean to upset you.
I have reason to be upset. My father was the district attorney who handled the case. I saw Mrs. Armstrong more than once. She was a lovely woman, so gentle and heartbroken. If ever a man deserved what he got, Cassetti's the guy. I'm rejoicing. A man like that wasn't fit to live.
You almost feel you could have murdered him yourself?
I do. Seems I'm kind of incriminating myself here.
Can you describe your movements last night?
Let's see. I fell into conversation with that Englishman, Colonel Arbuthnot. Then I went to take down some memoranda for letters Mr. Rэтchett wanted written, like I told you. When I came out, the Colonel was down the hall waiting while the attendant made up his bed. He came along back to my room here and we discussed world politics. The government of India, the Wall Street crisis. I don't as a rule cotton much to Britishers. They're a stiff-necked lot. But Arbuthnot is all right.
Did you hear or see anyone in the corridor while you were talking?
Let's see. Yes. The attendant passed along once from the direction of the restaurant car. I caught a glimpse of his uniform. Then I do remember some woman in a silk, scarlet something or other. Again, just a glimpse. She was headed the other way, towards the restaurant car.
Did you see her return?
No. Now that you mention it, I don't think I did. But I suppose she must have.
What time was it that the Colonel left you?
Pretty late. Getting on for 2 o'clock, I'd say.
You were together when the train stopped.
Yeah, shook me up a bit. But the Colonel was as cool as ice water. He's been in some tough scrapes, I'd guess. A near train wreck didn't even make him blink.
What happened after Colonel Arbuthnot said goodnight?
I called the attendant to make up my bed, and then hit the sack.
What sack did you hit, and why?
I went to bed. Slept till morning.
Do you smoke a pipe, Monsieur McQueen?
Nope. Don't smoke at all, as a matter of fact. I know they say it's healthy, but I don't believe them.
During the evening, did you leave the train at all?
Only when Arbuthnot and I got out at Belgrade to stretch our legs. When we saw you. But it was bitterly cold, so we hopped back on again.
Which door did you use?
The one closest to here.
Do you remember if the door you used was bolted?
Yes, I seem to remember it was. At least there was a kind of bar that fitted across the handle.
Did you replace the bar when you returned to the train?
You know, I don't think I did. I remember now. I left it unbolted for you. Say, listen, since we know that Rэтchett was really that swine Cassetti, there's something you should know.
Yes?
One night, late, after he'd received those threatening letters, I heard him working at my typewriter. He never did that. He always dictated his letters to me. From then on, wherever we were, he insisted on access to the safe. Whatever that document was, it was important enough that he traveled with it wherever we went. If there wasn't a safe available, he had one installed. I know for a fact he had one installed in the security room in the baggage car. I saw it when we were loading his crate.
Do you have the combination?
If he didn't trust me to type it for him, you really think he'd give me the combination?
Good day to you, monsieur. I won't find anything else in there. I've already...
Yes, Fräulein.
Frau Schmidt, I am helping Monsieur Poirot in the investigation of Monsieur Rátchett's death. Will you assist me?
If I can.
May I have your passport?
Yeah, here it is.
You are Hildegard Schmidt, aged 43, living in St. Petersburg.
Where I attend Madame la Princesse, yeah.
What can you tell me of your movements last night after dinner?
I moved very little. I read to the Princess Bleak House by the English writer Charles Dickens. The sudden stopping of the train interrupted us. Madame la Princesse luckily was not harmed. I returned to reading. I do not read aloud very well, but Her Excellency says that it is all the better. So it sends her better to sleep. When she became sleepy, she told me to go. I returned to the compartment I share with Fräulein Debenham.
What time was that?
It was very late. 1:30 or more.
Tell me about Mary Debenham.
She is a very agreeable young lady. She was already asleep when I came in after reading to Her Excellency.
What color is Mademoiselle Debenham's dressing gown?
It is a pale purple. Mauve, I believe the English say.
Did Mademoiselle Debenham leave the room at all last night?
Not after I returned. I sleep lightly, Fräulein. You understand? Should Her Excellency require me.
I would like to fingerprint you.
If you must.
Have you ever been to America?
No, never. I should like to go someday.
Do you know who this man Rátchett really was?
He was not Rátchett?
His name was Cassetti. He was responsible for the death of a small child named Daisy Armstrong.
My God! I have heard of that. The kidnapping. It was wicked. Wicked! We are not so wicked as that in Germany.
Is this your handkerchief, Frau Schmidt?
No, it is not mine.
It has the letter H, you see.
Ah, but it is a lady's handkerchief, that. A very expensive cambric handkerchief, embroidered by hand. It comes from Paris, I should say.
Did you see anyone as you returned to your compartment?
Only an attendant.
He was sitting at the end of the corridor?
No, Fräulein. He came out of one of the compartments in the middle. 2 or 3 doors from Madame la Princesse.
Was it Mrs. Hubbard's compartment?
It may have been.
But I saw him come out. You weren't in the corridor.
I most certainly was. He nearly ran into me, apologized, and hurried off in the direction of the salon car. A bell began ringing, but I do not think he answered it.
Then the bell started ringing?
Yes, Fräulein.
The attendant was Michel.
Our regular attendant? No, Fräulein.
What? What did he look like?
Small, dark. He had a little mustache. His voice, when he said, "Pardon," was weak and high-pitched. Higher than mine. I'd never seen him before.
Thank you, Mademoiselle Schmidt.
Regardez, mademoiselle.
I won't find... I don't need anything else from my suitcase at the moment.
Hello, miss. There is more snow coming, I think.
Greta, you know Monsieur Poirot has asked me to help him investigate the murder.
Yeah, I have heard this. It is satisfactory with you?
Very. Will you help me?
I will try.
May I have your passport, please?
It is here.
Greta Sigrid Olsen, 49, of Stockholm.
Of course, I am a missionary now, nurse at the school in Gemlik, and not much in Sweden.
You gave Mrs. Hubbard a headache powder last night?
Yeah, poor lady with the pain in the head.
That was around 10:40, I believe.
I am not sure.
Did you leave this compartment again after helping Monsieur Poirot?
His ankle is not so very injured, you know. I looked at it again this morning. I think he is not as brave as some of my little children.
After Monsieur Poirot?
I woke several times, of course, but it is because you were peeking out and leaving the compartment, not I.
After that?
When you finally settled down. No, I was very tired from all the activity. I slept. If I had gone out, would you not have noticed?
I'm not sure. You were here in the lower berth.
I slept until the morning. I slept soundly enough that you might have gone out again. I do not know about that, but I myself was sleeping.
Your dressing gown is brown, is it not?
Yeah, you have seen it for yourself. Very comfortable, of Jäger wool.
I would like to fingerprint you.
But of what am I accused?
Nothing, it's only formality.
Oh, I am sorry. Please fingerprint me.
Did you see anyone in the corridor when you took Mrs. Hubbard the medicine?
Not in the corridor, no.
Somewhere else?
I opened the door to the dead man's compartment by mistake. Mr. Rэтchettt. I was much ashamed.
What did you and Mrs. Hubbard talk about?
The pain in her head. It started at the back and sweep itself forward over her eyes and...
Anything else?
She asked me if the door between her compartment and Mr. Rэтchett's is locked. I check it for her.
And?
It is locked.
Did you actually see him?
Yeah, in his bed he was, reading a book.
Did he say anything to you?
He laughed. He invited me. I do not care to repeat what he said. It inflamed my cheeks. I left at once, naturally, and went into Mrs. Hubbard.
That means you were the last person to see Monsieur Rэтchettt alive.
I am suspected. Of all the people aboard the train, I am suspected.
Have you ever been in America?
No. Almost I go once. I was to accompany an invalid lady, but it was cancelled. I much regret it. They are very generous, the Americans. They give much money to schools and hospitals, and they are very practical.
Do you remember hearing of the Armstrong kidnapping case?
No. What was that?
A little girl was kidnapped and murdered. Her mother and an unborn child died in childbirth. A member of the staff committed suicide. Monsieur Rэтchettt was the man behind the kidnapping.
That there are in the world such evil men. It tries one's faith. The poor mother. My heart aches for her.
That will do for now, Mademoiselle Olsen. I've already searched it thoroughly.